The topic for this week's blog is how to weave in yarn tails again using the duplicate stitch method. And those of you that have followed my blog know that I talk about this a lot. This particular entry was inspired by some students who are having difficulty, and I wanted to show some of the ways that they're doing things. And then I've got a suggestion again on how to try this. Now, I have a little swatch here, and I'm sorry it's not blocked. And I've shown a variety of ways, I'm going to put my thumb over those, that I've had students weave in yarn tails. And this method, going diagonal, and you can go really diagonal or you can go this level of a diagonal. Well, don't. And but I see this. And you'll find this in some books and some references. The problem with this is, yes, it does anchor the tail fairly well, and it does kind of stretch with the fabric. But the problem is, it is visible on the right side because you're going through the center of stitches. Like right there, that is the center of the stitch, and I'm going through the center of another stitch. So of course that's going to be visible. And what can happen is that these tails can get snagged and they can pull free to the front. And I've seen that a number of times. Now up here was the method I had not seen before, and it was, I had 3 different students do this, and it sort of looks like the duplicate stitch method. But if you notice, they're going through the center of the stitches. And if I look at the right side, I can see why you might not want to do this. I can see the space between, well, actually they haven't gone through the center of stitches, they've gone through the spaces between. And when I stretch it, you can see it. Now here I have the duplicate stitch method, and I'm going to talk about the duplicate stitch method in much more detail in a minute. And in this case, if you've ever done duplicate stitch on the right side of the work, you know that you stick your needle in and you're trying to go through. And in this case, I've made no effort to watch where I've gone when I've done the duplicate stitch. In this one, what I've done is I have semi-split the stitches on the back where I'm going through. And the reason why that is preferable is it actually anchors and keeps that yarn tail on the wrong side of the work. There's not a chance that it's going to poke through. Now, if I were to stretch these two, you can see this one right here. It's pretty good. And if the yarn were the same color, I probably wouldn't notice that much at all, but I can see a little bit of poke through. So if I'm using a different color, I want to be careful to do it the way that I showed before, where I am splitting the stitches. And there's a little bit of show through where I have not, let's go through here, split those stitches as much. Notice that right there and right there where I'm getting that show through, I have gone completely pretty much under that loop, and that's why there's some show through. Now, as I've been teaching, I have noticed that students either get this right away or they do not. Some people just see the duplicate stitch and others do not. And if you do not see it, what I've recommended, but I've never demoed this before, is that you knit a swatch with 10 or 12 stitches. Work in one color. And use a needle size larger than you would normally do. I've used size 10 on these, and I normally would use a smaller needle for this weight of yarn. Do one row in a darker color, then go back to the original color. Bind off. Now I can see that I've got 1 row of stitches here, and when you are doing the duplicate stitch, what I want to do is duplicate my row on the wrong side. I want to stay on this row. So if I'm thinking of it like embroidery and I were doing decorative duplicate stitch, I would want to cover these stitches. I want to do the same on this row. I want to cover these stitches. The reason why I have you do it in a different color is it is very clear to see the path of the yarn. And I like to compare this path to ribbon candy. If you're young, you may not know what ribbon candy is, but you would see it at Christmas time. And it is a sugar candy that is poured and formed to look like this. So if you're having trouble seeing this, I would work the stitches, and I might even go to a larger size needle than I did. And what I want to do is I want to follow the path of the orange yarn. It's going under this one, it's going under this one, it's then going under this one, under this one, and that's what I want to do. This is what I want to practice. Now again, if you split the yarn slightly, and I always use a slightly pointier needle, instead of going completely under that yarn, I go on top. I want to go here, and I'm going to go into that same spot. So I'm going to go around the top of that stitch. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to follow the path of this yarn. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go into that same spot. Got my yarn tail there. And then I'm going to go down here. And I'm just going to keep it up. Now, once you have practiced this, the tricky part is to practice it on yarn that is the same color. And if you're having trouble seeing the path, get little safety pins or something. And I'm going to go under here, I'm going to go under here, I'm going to go under here, I'm going to go back under there, under here, 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 and just practice with it. But again, I have found that most people have success if they do this a few times. And you can see you really don't see it all that much underneath that.